Hey YouTube, this is Lithium017. Married 25 years to the Legend of Zelda series. 25 years ago on this day, February 21st, in 1986, the original Legend of Zelda came out in Japan. In 1987, it saw its release in Europe and North America. This poster here is the Club Nintendo poster of the Legend of Zelda Link's history since 1987, because this is the North American version. So I thought to commemorate Zelda 25 years of great gaming and what Miyamoto brought us in his creation, I would do my collection video of Zelda. So all of my posters, walkthroughs, paraphernalia, and games. The majority of what I collect is the home consoles of the games. I have played all of them at one point. I have not beaten all of them, but most of them I have. I thought I would start off with the actual Legend of Zelda. The first game that came out didn't actually speak of the legend at all. So to get into that, if you have the second game, and if you can ever pick this up, it's really cool. It's great reading material. You can probably find it online, but to actually have the copy is good. In Zelda 2, if I can kind of get it on this text, and maybe you can see it, but I'll read it as we go along together maybe. Here lies Princess Zelda, Impa began to speak calmly. Link, the time has come when I must tell you the Legend of Zelda handed down in Hyrule. It is said that long ago, when Hyrule was one country, a great ruler maintained the peace in Hyrule using the Triforce. However, the king too was a child of man and he died. Then the prince of the kingdom should have become king and inherited everything, but he could inherit the Triforce only in part. So the prince searched for all the parts. Then a magician close to the king brought some unexpected news. Before he died, the king had said something about the Triforce to only the younger sister of the prince, Princess Zelda. The prince immediately questioned the princess, but she wouldn't tell him anything. After the magician threatened to put the princess into an eternal sleep if she did not talk, but even still she said nothing. In his anger, the magician tried to cast a magic spell on the princess. The surprised prince tried to stop him, but the magician fought off the prince and went on chanting the spell. Then when the spell was finally cast, Princess Zelda fell on that spot and entered a sleep from which she might never awake. At the same time, the magician also fell down and breathed his last, I guess. In his grief, the prince placed the princess in this room. He hoped that someday she would come back to life. So that this tragedy would never be forgotten, he ordered that every female child born into the royal household shall be given the name Zelda. That is why there is a Zelda in every game of the timeline, actually. So that is the Legend of Zelda. The first game, when it was released in 1986, came out with a gold cartridge, like this one. Later on in the NES's life cycle, it did come out as a gray cartridge. Get the gold one if you can. It's really cool. So this first game was a top-down view adventure game, I guess, where you went into dungeons and found different weapons, and you could actually go in any dungeon that you wanted, but certain ones were easier than others. Nintendo released this kind of poster map that has the enemies on it and the overworld and all the items and things like that, as well as a really quick guide to Labyrinth 1 and 2, showing you where to get to Aquamentus, and in the second one where to get to Dodongo, which is quite neat. I think that game received an average ranking of about 79 on Game Rankings that compiles all of the different scores. So the second game that we already shortly discussed was Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. This was a side-scrolling / top-down action-adventure RPG platformer. It was a little bit of everything at the time. So there was an overworld that you walked around on, and enemies would spawn, and if they touch you, you kind of enter a battle screen. And when you were in towns or in the battle screen, it was a side-scroller. So it was kind of really neat. The game was very, very difficult. I'm not that good at this game. I have a friend that can nearly beat the whole game without dying, and the death that he gets is really cheap death. Fantastic game. If you're looking for a challenge, play it. You might think this is the kind of the black sheep of the series, but I really like it. I wish they made another side-scrolling Zelda game. After that, I guess I should mention the score. The score of that one was about 69% average. It was a bit lower, but I think it's still fantastic. Then on to the SNES was The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. This game is considered to be a masterpiece by many people. It's ridiculously fantastic. Really well done. It's kind of done in 3/4 top-down view for the majority of the game. It introduced the idea of the dark world and, I guess, like the light world of Hyrule. So it was kind of just 2 dimensions. So the game was very long, great story, just fantastic overall. Again, it came with this little instruction book, the game itself. If you can find a copy with the top secret, it's kind of really cool. It's messages from that guy that no one can pronounce. It's like Sarah Shirala, that guy in the game. So it has a little bit of tips and things like that from Nintendo. There was also this poster that came out with some of the games, and I believe this did come with the game itself. It's quite rare. Normally you get the Star Fox poster, but if you can find this green A Link to the Past poster, it's worth it. The overworld and the dimensions, like I said, were huge. So this is a poster that came with the game as well, I believe. And it's pretty massive world. You have Hyrule Castle in the middle, and everything else branches out around that. On the back of the poster is some dungeon lore and some different things like that. A little bit of a walkthrough. I have a walkthrough for the game as well. It's just really neat to go through this and look at all the art. I don't always use the walkthroughs, but they're really neat. It shows you how to get everything if you are a completionist and things like that. So I do have many of those. Moving along. Well, the average score for A Link to the Past was roughly 93, very, very high. And actually, I don't have the game, but after that, Link's Awakening was released as well. And Link's Awakening was released in 93, after A Link to the Past was released in 91. So Link's Awakening got an average score of about 91 or so. Now, we had to wait a very long time for another home console Legend of Zelda game, but it was definitely worth the wait. I'm sure all of you know. Ocarina of Time was released in 1998 to an average score of the highest video game of all time. Almost everyone knows this. About 97.5%. Many perfect scores on lists. Top game of all time for many people. I have a lot of posters on the ground here, so let me just move them out of the way so I can get a bit closer to this. So this is the Game of the Year edition that I have. There was also the collector's edition that you had to get. Basically pre-ordering it, you're getting it right away. The only difference with this is the front of the box. Looks a little bit different, and obviously the original didn't have the player's choice version. This game redefined basically adventure games. It was absolutely insane. It was my favorite Zelda game, most people's favorite Zelda games. Almost completely perfect. Very few complaints with the game. I replay it almost every single year. There was a gray cart that was released afterwards, but if you had the collector's edition, there was a gold cartridge. I left that at my place in Waterloo, so I do not have it here just for this video. And it came with a little thing that says take aim, and you could actually order some Zelda paraphernalia if you wanted to get some statues and some different things like that. Just kind of neat. You can get hats and statues and all that sort of stuff. Good stuff. Expensive, but really nice. The overworld in this was even bigger than A Link to the Past. So you had Hyrule Field, which was absolutely massive. You had Epona that you could ride and all across the field. The dungeons were clever. It was absolutely great. There was all these side quests, like the trading game. That's what this is a poster of. And I'll have a walkthrough for Ocarina of Time as well. And the artwork in some of these books is really cool. It has all the songs there as well. I love the songs. They're fantastic. Really simple. Great game overall. One of the best. Definitely in the top 3 of all time on almost everyone's list. Just making sure I'm on track. Link's Awakening DX also came out in 1998, but it wasn't a new game per se. So after this game, where do you go from Ocarina of Time? Well, they used the same engine to create the Majora's Mask game. And Majora's Mask wasn't received quite as well, but it was still absolutely fantastic. Its average score was something like 92% on average. Ridiculously high still. This used an alternate world of Termina, and the moon was basically going to crash into the world and destroy it. You had 3 days to save it, and the Skull Kid was the enemy in the game, I guess. So, very interesting game. Different. Used the same graphic engine, like I said. It also had a collector's edition, and this one required the expansion pack. And it used masks, many masks that you could put on. Now this collector's edition was a gold holo cart, and the original version, or the next version I guess, was just a gold cart, but it wasn't holographic. You could order a player's guide through that one as well. I have 2 strategy guides for this one, and the art in these is really good. I have actually never completed this game. I've gotten close, but I just lost interest. If you thought Ocarina of Time maybe had too much distance between things or there wasn't enough enemies, this game is loaded with enemies. Hyrule Field is swarming with them. It's a bit more challenging, not overly so. Fantastic game. Really well made. After that, in 2000, which was when Majora's Mask was released, in 2001, there was plans to release a Trinity of Games that were supposed to come out. What resulted from the Trinity of Games was actually just this poster here I have, the Oracle of Ages and the Oracle of Seasons. I have not played these as well. I haven't played the majority of the handheld ones. But there was 3 games that were supposed to come out using password. You're supposed to transfer your data. It was a little too complicated, so Miyamoto suggested that the team working on it just go down to 2 games. So out of the 3, you got Ages and Seasons. Once you complete one, you could go to the other one. So these games were very well done as well. The Oracle of Seasons has an average score of 91.5%, and the Oracle of Ages is slightly higher at 91.89 currently. So those were great games released in 2001. After that, there was A Link to the Past and 4 Swords, which was released on, I think, the Game Boy Advance in 2002, which was just A Link to the Past on the handheld with a little bit of adventure of the 4 Swords. And let's just take a look. I'm just trying to keep on track. That game got an average score of 91.7, but it was a re-release. The next true game to come out was the Wind Waker. So the Wind Waker was released on the GameCube. I have a lot of Wind Waker stuff. Wind Waker is my second favorite Zelda game next to Ocarina of Time. The Wind Waker was absolutely fantastic. So it was released in 2002, as I said. It got an average score of 94.53 right now. Very, very high. Many people saw the trailer at the E3 before it, seeing Link fight Ganon with very high-tech graphics, and people were really excited for the next Zelda game. And then they came out with this, and Link looked like a little cartoon character. People were really upset. I embraced the idea. I really like the simplicity of the ocean. I like the game. I like the sailing. It can get a bit tiresome, but the dungeons were fantastic. I was in shock when I first saw the fire graphics in that temple. Unbelievable. Very, very good game. So that was like a gold disc, I guess, let's say. It was also released in the rest of the world, obviously, and in Japan. It wasn't called the Wind Waker. It was actually just called like Tact of Wind. Kind of different. I believe this is the Japanese version. I cannot read it, but Tact of Wind is a little bit different, but you get the same idea from it. And this is the Tact of Wind disc with the walkthrough. Team Up with Tingle actually went up there with that. So there was a few little inserts. The overworld in this was water for the most part, with the poster behind this that you can kind of see with all the different islands on it. I have 3, count them, 3 walkthroughs for the Wind Waker. The original one I got was this beast, and the art in here is cool. I wanted to get this one just because it's such a big thing. Look at that picture. I really like the art for Wind Waker. It's very different. I'm a fan of that kind of style. So that is my second favorite Zelda game. And it was extremely well received. So after the Wind Waker, there was also in 2003, well not also, but the next year there was Master Quest released. So I guess I should speak about that now. This is Master Quest. What Master Quest is, it's on the GameCube. It is Ocarina of Time as well as the Master Quest, which was supposed to be released, I think, on the Nintendo 64 DD. And that never came around, but what it is, it's Ocarina of Time Same overworld, same characters, except the dungeons are different. Not necessarily more difficult per se, but just different. It's like Nintendo's second choice of the dungeons. There was one part where I remember there was a bomb shoe, and using it was ridiculous, and I don't know how you had to figure it out. So, if you liked Ocarina of Time, you're looking for a challenge, get this. Definitely play it. That game received an average score of, let me see if I actually have it. No, I don't think I have an average score for that one. So after that, there was Four Swords Adventures, which was released in 2004 on the GameCube. So this kind of continued the idea that was back on the A Link to the Past Four Swords game, and you use 4 people, and there's 2 different modes that you can play it in. I haven't gotten around to playing this one at all. I need some friends to do it. But you also need the Game Boy Advance, kind of, because when you go in certain areas, you actually go on your Game Boy Advance screen. Very, very cool. Very different game. Average score of roughly 84.5%. Still a really good game. If you have friends and you have Game Boy Advances with the link cables, definitely pick it up. So after 2004, in the same year, there was also the Minish Cap released. Now, I don't actually have a copy of the Minish Cap either. And there it is. This game gives you the origin of his hat, actually. So at the end of the game, well, during the game, actually, you can see this little character that rides on your head. And he rides on your head all game. And at the end, to commemorate the whole game, I guess, or you helping him, he actually gives you a green hat. So apparently that's the origin, which is interesting. The Minish Cap got an average score of about 90%. Fantastic as well. After that, in 2006... there was the Twilight Princess in development for the GameCube. Now this game took so long in development, and it's so epic, that they actually ported it over to the Wii as well. So it was on both consoles. It came out in 2006, as we said, and it got an average score on the GameCube of 96, and on the Wii of 94.51. If I kind of wish it just came out on the GameCube only, it would be remembered as even more, I think, of a fantastic game on the GameCube. The Wii actually changed Link's, the way he held the controller. The way he held his sword, I guess, because most people are right-handed. Link, if you haven't noticed, is actually a left-handed player normally. Left individual holds the Master Sword always in his left hand. But for the Wii version, they put it over on his right hand. I left my Wii copy at school, so I do have the GameCube version, because, I mean, obviously you need to have both. Completely epic game, my 3rd favorite Zelda game. A Link to the Past gives it a really good run for its money. So again, that's a little gold disc. The graphics in it are the most realistic of any Zelda game. It is the biggest game, it is the longest game. It's not overly difficult, but it's absolutely fantastic. And this poster here was also a Club Nintendo poster, right there, which is spectacular. Definitely get that. I also have this lunchbox that came with a little bit, with a few things, a Zelda little case, and some Wii Remote holders. So I just thought I'd include that. Kind of interesting. After that, in 2007, Phantom Hourglass was released on the NES. Let me see if I can find my Phantom Hourglass, if I have a poster for it. I thought I did, but I do not. So Phantom Hourglass was released in 2007. It kind of continued the whole Wind Waker style. This time it used a stylus, though, that you could run around with, and it received an average score of 88.91. I've played a little bit of it, and it's very interesting. The graphics are different, obviously, because they follow the Wind Waker. It's kind of a direct sequel to the Wind Waker. Definitely pick it up if you have a DS. After Phantom Hourglass, there was 2 years, and then Spirit Tracks was released. So Spirit Tracks kind of used Miyamoto's idea of a train, which is really interesting in a Zelda game. And you kind of ride around Hyrule on this train. So I've played maybe an hour of it. I need to get into it. That received an average score of 86.92. In this year, 2011, apparently Skyward Sword is supposed to come out, as well as a... My phone's ringing, but I'm going to choose to ignore that. So, as well as a Ocarina of Time 3D game is supposed to come out, which is supposed to be absolutely fantastic. There's also talk of Link's Awakening coming out. So the posters, just to give you a really quick idea, I have an Ocarina of Time poster, Majora's Mask, Oracle of Ages and Seasons. And there goes the phone again, so let's ignore that one more time. The Wind Waker, I have 2 of those little posters. Spirit Tracks, Minish Cap. I have 2 of nearly the same poster for Twilight Princess. They're very similar. As well as this poster that I already showed you. This Phantom Hourglass poster, there it is. I knew I had one. And I also have the Twilight Princess poster there as well. Zelda, and not always Zelda, but Link also appeared in many other games, including the Smash Brothers games. I have the Wii version, but it's not here. He had his own shooting game, Link's Crossbow Training, as well as he was used in the marketing campaigns for the Nintendo 64. Eventually, there was a box that was released with Banjo-Kazooie, you can see right there, and Link was on that right there with Mario. And King Griffey Jr. for one reason or another. There was also a gold Nintendo 64 that was released, so let me just take you over here. To commemorate, it was a controller at first, but the gold console's idea was to commemorate Nintendo 64, Zelda Ocarina of Time, as well as Majora's Mask, I guess, eventually. So, the Zelda has been in my life since 1998, since the release of Ocarina of Time is when I started playing it. And since then, I've gone back and played all the home console versions. So, happy 25 years to Zelda. Sorry it's such a long video, but I had a lot of stuff to go over. Fantastic games, my favorite series. 25 great years. Hopefully Skyward Sword. I'm looking forward to it. I think the art style is really clever. I really hope Zelda never really gets to the point where everyone's hoping it looks realistic. I just want it to be kind of the fantasy world. He's wearing a green tunic and we all love him, so it's kind of different. Doesn't really make sense. Happy 25 years, Zelda. Talk to you gamers later.